What's going on, fellow A-Plusers? It's your boy Adam Perez. I'm back once again with a brand new video for you guys today as we are finally getting into season 2 of the Rings of Power. Now, look, we did do a review for season 1. There's a whole entire playlist on our YouTube channel. If you haven't checked it out, maybe you're in the process of doing a rewatch for season 1 or you want to do a rewatch. Watch the episodes, follow along with us in our reviews. Again, you can go ahead and find them in our playlist if you'd like to for Rings of Power Season 1. But we're back, baby. We're back, baby. And we wind up getting 3 episodes that premiered this past Thursday for the Rings of Power Season 2. Now, this is a show that I will be reviewing on a weekly basis going forward. If anything, what we'll probably do today is just get episodes 1 through 3 out of the way. We'll probably talk about just the story, certainly as a whole, and then we'll go week to week after that. So I don't exactly know just yet when I want to drop these episodes. If I want to do these reviews sort of live, I think they drop on Thursday, so maybe like a Friday evening I'll do one, or maybe a Saturday morning. Who certainly knows? But we'll see how this one goes, and then we'll just kind of go from there and see what my schedule certainly asks for. But we are back, baby, and look, let me tell you. Ever since we got our first teaser trailer, I was on board, okay? And then the San Diego Comic-Con trailer wind up dropping, and I was really on board. And then the official trailer for this dropped, and I was over the moon, baby. Like I've always kind of low-key been really anticipating the return of the Rings of Power season 2. Look, I've gotten a lot of pushback talking about season 1. I mean, hell, some of my reels that I drop for The Lord of the Rings get some of the most like toxic and negative ass sort of comments sort of thing. So there's been a real pushback for season 1, to certainly say the least. But there are a few people that are definitely out there that have definitely enjoyed this show. And one of those people is me. Do I think season 1 was certainly perfect? Not by any stretch of the imagination. I do think that there tends to be way too many storylines, maybe certainly going on. But I do appreciate the attention to detail that they're certainly having and the density that they're adding to some of these storylines as well. For me, it makes me feel like I'm getting the most out of my viewing going experience, right? Like if I want to compare that to something like The Acolyte that literally gave me, if I was lucky, 35 minutes, and that's probably really like 32 minutes with without credits. Knowing that Rings of Power is giving me 9 times out of 10, it feels like over an hour's worth of content, that I can really enjoy and just sink my teeth into, and I like meaty content, and Rings of Power certainly offers that for me, and so my anticipation level for season 2, was certainly high. Like, look, I am not a Tolkien purist, okay? So if you are looking for somebody to give you a review on this show that knows the inner workings and what happens in Silmarillion chapter 5, page 16, I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you. I'm just a television goer, a movie goer that enjoys being entertained. I saw the Peter Jackson movies. I really love them. I did read the Lord of the Rings trilogy itself, understanding Peter Jackson certainly has to take liberties and can't adapt everything certainly word for word. That's exactly how I view the Rings of Power. The concept is taking place in this world that was established by Tolkien, taking some creative liberties, some that certainly works for people, some that certainly don't. But you know what? I don't know that world like that. I'm just looking for good, enjoyable content, and that's what it gives me. I feel like the money that this show puts into it, I clearly see it when I watch the television series. I feel like I'm getting small movies every time that I certainly watch the show, from a cinematography point of view, a visual effects point of view, the costume designs, the meticulous details that regardless if everything is accurate, that they have that they're trying to adapt, the fact that I've seen these people like literally take the to the finest details of creating sort of these worlds and these cultures and these societies and weaving them into, all the everyday stuff that they certainly use, right? The makeup designs, the creature designs. I mean, these people put their heart and soul, and I can see it visually when I watch it. And for me as a television goer, if I feel like I'm in this world that I saw on the Peter Jackson movies, that's all I personally need. And so I really have been enjoying the Rings of Power show for certainly what it is. And so going into season 2, especially after like what I call was like a three-part finale in season one. Now we find ourselves one step closer to Sauron coming to power. So let's go ahead and talk about this. And guys, remember, I'm going to be talking about it in the sense of just one through three as a whole and what I think about the storylines that they've kind of established, where we find our characters at, and then we'll go from there on a weekly basis, certainly going forward. Let's talk about the man of the hour, and that is Sauron. He feels like he's in almost every scene in at least the first two episodes. Even if he's not physically there, played by Charles Vickers or Charlie Vickers, just his essence feels like it's constantly around, and I love that feeling. I appreciate them taking me to the dawn of the Second Age and showcasing me sort of, I don't want to say the beginnings of Sauron, but we do see a visually different Sauron, and going back to that moment in which Adar says, I killed Sauron, taking us to that very moment to be the beginning of Sauron's story, made me kind of appreciate what it is that Sauron is. And I love that Galadriel later in that episode says, he is no man. And it's like, okay. Like I get it now. To kind of see the idea of how he survives, how he grows, how he, I don't want to say mimics, but gets the ability to gain human form and then be able to change sort of his form. I found really, really fascinating, in that sense of like, you literally have to like kill every ounce of this person's being in order to finally destroy him. And it makes it that much more believable that something that can do that can also engrave their darkness into these rings and cast power over them. And so it made me understand Sauron so much more significantly better that I can, moving forward, and then even hell, even connecting them further to the Lord of the Rings trilogy itself again. So I really did appreciate sort of that lore building for Sauron here to get us to the point of where we meet him at in the beginning of season one. And again, I think season one did a remarkable job of setting up where we are currently as of right now. I saw a great meme once that said season one had to walk before season two can run. And I completely agree because season two feels like it has just thrusted us into the ish right now that season one needed to be in order to get us to this particular point. Because I don't necessarily know if we care enough about these characters or the weight and the intensity of these moments on these characters mean if we didn't go through that. I don't want to say painstaking season one. Maybe for some people it was in regards to like the drawn out dialogue driven scenes to establish stuff, right? Like sometimes I can get the slow movement. I totally get it. But it's necessary. And I think season one, I just look at it completely differently now going into season two. And it really makes me even appreciate the Halbrand character from season one even more. If you guys recall, if you watch my season one reviews talking about Vickers as Halbrand, I just kept thinking to myself, like, who is this guy? Like, there's just something off about him. I don't know if it's his acting, his presence, like the vibes that he's giving off. Like, there's just something about this guy, like, I just didn't care for, just I didn't know about. But it makes complete sense now, concerning the fact of who he who he eventually reveals himself to be, and now knowing sort of his past a little bit more. So it does make season one kind of hit that much more different to really appreciate what's happening here. I'm also been a really big fan of the Galadriel and Elrond story, talking about Morfied Clark, or Morfied, yeah, Morfied Clark and Robert Aramayo as Elrond. I think they've been doing incredible work, and I've been a big fan of both of them since season two, especially Elrond. I think Robert is really great in this role, and I love that he's the only dude with like common sense right now. The only person that's actually being reasonable in this situation, in the sense of like, him and Celebrimbor were kind of like this making these rings, bro. Right? Like long before we even thought about this concept of him being Sauron. So who's to say all the time that he spent making these is not a possibility, And so to kind of see everybody just kind of fall in line immediately, and Elrond being the only voice of reason, I think is absolutely perfect. And I love his sternness and his honesty with these people, in the sense of like, the price that you're gonna pay for putting these rings on is getting my brutal honesty about how stupid of an idea that this is, and the fact that nobody's listening to me. Like, I'm going to remind you constantly. Like, I dig it. Like, I dig it. Like, you should be hard on absolutely everybody that you meet, Elrond, that has a ring on their hand. Because it's just incredible to me, literally within the first sequence of them being back, with the rings, you can feel, um, the corruptness on them. You can feel just how much a presence Sauron and the rings are going to have. And the fact that it's kind of, I don't want to say it's calling to them, but you can see the darkness and the changes that it brings out in people in regards to like their priorities changing, or their greed and lust for power getting the best of them a little bit, right? Like being able to really creep into the dark corners of your soul, is pretty much what these rings certainly feel like they tend to do. And I love that Elrond not only calls it out, but you could see it in Gilgalad immediately. The idea of like, no, if these rings can, like, I mean, granted, maybe he does want to save his people, but you can feel it, right? When he says that. Um, it's just pretty powerful stuff to really see. And so I'm a really big fan of Elrond this season. And Galadriel too. Look, I heard some people say, Galadriel wasn't a warrior in the books or anything like that. Like they portray her to be in season one. And look, that may be true. But what I love about her though is that despite that, she's not perfect. Like she's a very fallible character. She has her weaknesses. And for me, that's so much more fascinating than anything else. The fact that her and Sauron had these moments and had this connection in season one. And I even love the scene when she tells Elrond in the sense of like, come, hand over the rings. I love the moment that they have together where she says, like, I need you around, right? To make sure he's not in my head again. And Elrond says he already is. And it's got that quick flashback of her looking towards Halbrand in season one, and like that look that they give. I don't know if that's like a vibe kind of look, like a longing kind of look, like there's that type of vibe, or if there's just like a mental, we connect girl on that type of vibe. Maybe it's a little bit of both. Who knows? But the fact that she briefly thinks about it and Elrond catches that moment, and just how taken aback Galadriel is at herself. Man, great performance, but also like her performance literally speaks volumes. And you can tell just how ingrained Sauron is, and she's very much a liability, you know? Um, Definitely far from perfect. Definitely a liability. And the idea that she was not only deceived, but now could potentially be influenced despite her thinking it's her own intentions, I think is even more fascinating to kind of see how Galadriel navigates that, the remainder of this season. So yeah, I'm super, super compelled by that stuff. And this master, what was his name? That guy that uh, Elrond wind up giving the rings to, Círdan, Master Círdan. Man, I for sure thought he was gonna drop those rings, and then he gets pulled back in. Absolutely love it. Um, Celebrimbor, I love the sequences of him in here. Um, you know, having first I applaud Celebrimbor's um steadfastness of not letting Halbrand in at first. But all it takes is a stroke of an ego, right? To make Celebrimbor kind of open up a little bit in the sense of like, hey, you achieved something. You did something great, Celebrimbor. What you created helped an entire race of people. You know, knowing that they worked. Oh, what? They what? Like you want that ego stroked, and it opens up his door to let Halbrand in, and now you got Sauron in this man's house, changing forms to come down to him as like their elf Jesus, the Lord of Gifts, if you will. Um, shining below, really being super deceptive, trying to get into Celebrimbor's, trying to get into his head. The Lord of Gifts, Anatar. I mean, is Anatar like a real, like did the elves actually look up to somebody like Anatar, or is he just making up Anatar? It feels very much like there's a history of Anatar in the Tolkien books. Um, because I mean, Celebrimbor like took it, took the bait immediately, ready to just bow down to this guy. So it feels like there's like a deity or something like that that elves might believe in. So maybe that's why Sauron is taking that name of Anatar. Certainly to fool Celebrimbor for sure, but it's definitely working. And I think even Sauron, I don't want to say Sauron is surprised, but I think I think he likes seeing his handiwork in the sense of like, man, this guy's just falling for every little thing that I tell him, and he's just going down this path. His hubris is starting to take over in the sense of now lying to the king at the end of this 3 episodes in the sense of like, hey, I'm gonna tell him I'm shutting down I'm shutting down my business right now. Well, in the meantime, he's out here creating these powerful ass rings, and like you, like fucking Oprah out here, like you can have a ring, and you can have a ring, and you can have a ring. Like he's just Oprah right now, and so I am fascinated to kind of see Celebrimbor's path in here, and how he's eventually gonna find out the truth about who Anatar certainly is. Because boy, it's gonna be a pretty good one. And you know what? I'm actually even really enjoying the dwarves this year. I didn't, not that I didn't before, but I um uh, King Durin and his son Durin the fourth. I've really enjoyed sort of that father-son dynamic that they're tackling in here. The two stubborn men that can't apologize for what happened in season 1, and just seeing like the demotion that Durin the Fourth is has gotten, and that inability to really speak to his father, I think is fascinating. So I do love seeing the effects of what Mordor coming to life, um, how that affects the dwarves, along with their mountains in here, and the lengths that they are willing to go in order to kind of get that back. Despite the idea of Durin the Fourth telling his father, the king, like I just have a really bad feeling about this. They seem open to, his father at least seems open to taking that risk of getting these rings of power, and doing what it needs to kind of help the rest of the dwarves and stuff. So I'm kind of curious, like how will it start affecting and changing these people even more as we get further into this season. And then the idea of trying to make rings for men, like I right now I don't know if I can see Celebrimbor getting to that point. The idea of him making for dwarves, cool, but he does eventually make 9 for men, does he not? So I'm really curious as to what motivates him to change his mind, because that's going to be as costly as it comes, unfortunately. The Numenor stuff is, I think for me, maybe the weakest link of this season so far. I don't know what you do with Numenor though in order to make it more riveting. I mean, we did have a big ass eagle at the end of episode 3, as it seems as though we have a new king of Numenor, as people are really kind of throwing their support behind this, her cousin, if I'm not mistaken. Um, I am interested to see more of Elendil, to kind of see where he takes his stance at. Considering that he has an issue with Galadriel and the elves, based off of what happened to them on Middle Earth, and him quote unquote losing his son Isildur. And now knowing about the all-seeing eye that she was certainly using, the Penetair. I can never remember the name of it. If he'll still be loyal to her, after what he learns. Isildur, I'm really fascinated in, and to see like what is his path. He does become king, right? In the sense that he at least battles. Um, he eventually gets the One Ring for himself at some point in time, and so I am curious to see his journey, if he goes back to Numenor or if he stays on Middle Earth from this point on. But I am really fascinated to see where he goes from here. If anything, the Stranger and the Harfoots, I am curious in that storyline, especially with the Dark Wizard. Him getting his staff, where did the Harfoots fly off to? I do like that the Stranger is having more of a talking role. Like I don't know how long him and the Harfoots have been traveling since we last saw them in season 1, but he clearly has come along and has been able to speak now, and I kind of enjoy him speaking instead of being like the near mute and just the emoting guy the whole time, you know? So the fact that he's actually speaking a little bit more actually makes, I think, their story a little bit more compelling. Especially with the introduction now to this dark wizard that we certainly have. Theo, I don't really care for him as a character, but I will say the kid grew up a lot between filming, for sure, for sure. Him and Arondir, they're really taking the death of his mother very hard. Um, Theo clearly blaming Arondir to some capacity in here, suggesting the idea of like, bro, you're not my daddy. You know, like I don't need to care about you. And he's dealing with the loss of somebody that he clearly loves. So, I kind of the Numenor stuff, and along with the Arondir and Theo stuff, almost feel like side quest missions right now. Like they were just kind of thrown in here to feel like, oh yeah, by the way, there's also these guys. Because I don't know, that's what I felt like to me. It is one of those things, like I get why in the first 2 episodes you maybe like focus on other aspects first. But I guess especially in episode 3, it feels like they took out the Stranger and Harfoot storyline to insert the other storyline, the Numenor storyline. That's what it felt like to me. And so I feel like those two may be intersected every couple of episodes. And I don't think in episode 3 we had any Galadriel stuff either, if I'm not mistaken. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more Galadriel stuff also. Like maybe there should be one constant all throughout the season. Because there's so many storylines, and then maybe just interswapping out one every couple of episodes. I don't know. There's a lot of moving threads. I will certainly say that. Because even watching the recap for season 1, I was like, oh wow, like yeah, there's a lot going on here. I think we might have gotten teased at the concept of Ents towards the end of episode 3. Because Theo winds up getting pulled up along with some of the other human scavengers that wind up getting pulled and yanked up too. Feels like they were being pulled into the tree. So I do wonder if episode 4 is when we get introduced to the Ents again in here. But overall, man, I really enjoyed what we got the first 3 episodes. The intensity is there, the intrigue is there, the drama is there, the emotions are there. Special effects are incredible. The music is pretty rousing. I think this is hitting on all cylinders. Again, I do think there are some weak storylines here or there, but I am interested to kind of see, like, some clearly started off a lot stronger than others, but that doesn't mean that those stories can't build into something even better. And so I am kind of curious to see what they build into, because I'm expecting the Galadriel, the Elrond stuff. I'm expecting, like, anything elf related. I'm expecting to hit. Sauron is gonna hit. It really is those side quests of the Harfoots and the Strangers. I guess maybe the dwarves to a certain. I don't know. The dwarves feel like they're kind of concrete too a little bit, that they can kind of stick around the entirety of the season also. But you definitely have the side quest storylines as well, if you will. So we'll see how those wind up hitting. But overall, great first impressions, guys. I'm looking forward to breaking down and talking about these episodes on a weekly basis with you guys. Again, I'll certainly keep you updated. I'm going to try for, if not going live on Friday nights, maybe have it pre-recorded and drop Saturday morning for you guys. A couple of days separated from Thursday to give everybody the opportunity to try and check it out within 2 or 3 days. So yeah, so either live Friday nights or dropping a pre-recorded one for you guys on Saturday morning. So expect one for episode 4 this week. But look, at the end of the day, guys, these are just simply my A+ opinions. I certainly want to know yours. I'm sure there's some aspects about these episodes I certainly didn't talk about, but if you want to go ahead and continue to explore them and talk with me and have a discussion throughout the week until next week's episode, throw your thoughts in the comment section box below, guys. We had a lot certainly going on in this episode. I would be really fascinated to know your guys' opinions on some of these things as well. So yeah, let me know your thoughts and we'll continue the conversation until next week. But until then, do me a big favor as always, guys. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and keep it A+. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.